Thank you, Sam. Thanks again to all of the poets who read today. We really appreciate it. And next we have our second feature poet, Natasha Sajé. Natasha is the author of 5 books of poems, including The Future Will Call You Something Else from Tupelo Press, which appeared earlier this year. And I believe there's copies available for sale over there for you to buy afterwards. I'm sure she'd be happy to sign them for you. Her critical book about poetry, Windows and Doors, A Poet Reads Literary Theory, was published by the University of Michigan Press in 2014. A memoir-in-essays, a Pen Finalist, titled Terroir, Love Out of Place, was published by Trinity UP in 2020. Natasha grew up in New York City and northern New Jersey. There was a much longer introduction here, and Natasha is very modest, and she edited the introduction. So I'm going to skip forward, but there's a lot of accolades in here and great things she's accomplished. I do need to note, though, that her work was published in Smartish Pace, and I'm very grateful for that. But that got X'd out, so. All right, we jump ahead. Natasha is Professor Emerita of English at Westminster College in Salt Lake City, and has been teaching in the low residency Vermont MFA program in writing since 1996. She lives in Washington, D.C., and it is my pleasure to present Natasha Sajé to read for us today.
Thank you, Stephen and Clare and all the folks at the Ivy, old friends, very old friends, new friends. Thank you all for being here. Does the sound good? And can I ask you not to clap between poems because it jolts me, so I'm not used to that. Thank you. So I'm going to start with a long poem. A lot of the poems in this book are letter poems. Addressed to real people, entities, made-up people, people from the past. This one is titled Dear Jolene, and it's not the woman's real name, but she was a real woman. So, Dear Jolene, you don't know me, or rather, you know me only as one of the women who jog in the pool you manage, a pool with mostly old people and children in 87-degree water that keeps away serious swimmers. But I have come to know you, albeit in a relentlessly odd way, because while I'm there with my head out of the water and my glasses on, I like to look around. And for 4 years, I've heard and watched you, your break haircut and dye job, the brown under the blonde, in your case, and my opinion, quite chic. The bob suits your square jaw. You like to blow the whistle on miscreants, talking in lap lanes, or running on deck. This embarrassed another water jogger so much she stopped coming. When you did it to me, it piqued my interest. I too like to keep people in line. When I see someone using a handicapped parking spot and walking very well indeed, I say something. This could get me to trouble, I know, but I've got gray hair, so maybe not. This letter is a different kind of trouble. Trouble, turbid, cloudy, appropriate for a body of water in which nearly every swimmer pees. The whole world is murky sometimes, most of all the people in it. What do I know? How sweet you are, giving a lesson to a 3-year-old and her mother. You clearly like your job imparting the joy of flotation. And you've kept fit, albeit a weight gain of 15 or so pounds, distributed evenly. You cover up more quickly now, so I expect you're self-conscious. I used to be, before I channeled my 92-year-old aunt. Missing, minus 2 breasts and wrinkled all the way to the bone. Menopause requires a shift in eating habits. I skip dinner a few times a week. You take out from Jasmine on Thursday nights, sprinting into your glass-walled office with white and red plastic bags in your hands, then closing the blinds. Paying attention is a kind of love, Jolene. Although I'm not attracted to you, not after that first year when the internet told me you moved to Utah for college, married Jared, bought a 3-bedroom house and had 2 children, a daughter who should be 21 now, although I can't find her online, a son born 2 years later. 12 years ago, you were quoted in a newspaper about the difficulty of keeping children safe. More recently, a sister-in-law died mysteriously in a canyon, her remains found years later. I wonder about Jared, installing floors all day, then sitting in the high school gym bleachers, cheering your son. You loved your grandpa's silver dollar pancakes and still use the steamer he gave you in Elmira. But I wonder whether you're happy, whether your life turned out the way you dreamed, what you dreamed. You're a registered Republican, Jolene, not surprising in light of Jared's Mormonism, although your Catholicism gave you, we could say, more choice. I expect we're on the opposite sides of most issues, including whether water joggers should be allowed to use the lap lanes. I give to Planned Parenthood. Your donations are a mystery. I wonder why I care. Should I get a waterproof iPod and listen to Serial? Is my biographical impulse merely learning facts and constructing a narrative? A version of reading, like prognostication, intuiting the divine? Whatever my purpose, I assure you it is not evil. Freud might ascribe it to loneliness and only childhood. Jung might call you a shadow. Or this could be my letter to the world that never wrote to me. I've written letters to others who won't write back. The Festos Disc, Caitlyn Jenner, alcohol, spilling secrets in poems. Works of imagination, mind you, not journalism. Fearing all the while that the worst thing in life might be to not be known at all. Don't clap. Thank you. I'm going to read some more. So this is the poem that gave me the idea for the title, which I changed a little bit. It's called Gradual, and it has an epigraph from the 1967 film The Graduate. And I've shortened the epigraph. Just one word, plastics. I wrench and cut the clear, thick film, envisioning its path to trash. And next, the hiding place where no one ever goes. This stuff gets smaller and smaller, micro to nano to who knows what. Every way you look at it, you lose. 1% of me is probably it already, seeding cells with particles through infinitesimal scissor teeth. The vision that was planted in my brain. In Latin, sapiens means wise. The future will call us something else. This poem's titled The Island, and there's a detail at the end that would help to know the background on. So apparently the brain has 400 miles of blood vessels. Surely I saw that island once. Griswold and Watts appear on a map of the Sound, where 2 summers I worked at 17 and 18. I remember the dream, stepping onto a gray weathered dock from a wobbly metal boat, the green shore sparked with white cottages, my sneakers on rocks above, killfish and silversides in the shoal murky with weeds, wrapping my hand like a net. A distant red cloth flags its pole. In a visit I am not sure happened. The island is a stone fruit, sweetly, sourly, indissoluble from skin, a realm floating in my mind, its causeway surrounded by 400 miles of vessels seeking fresh water. The next poem is a prose poem and has lots of space in between. And I realized I started it back when I lived in Baltimore in the 90s. So it's old, but it didn't take its shape until not that long ago. It's titled On Beauty. I have a tree outside my house. I don't know what kind. In spring, it blooms gorgeous. Pink flowers cluster together as big as a small dog. Aunt Frank looked upon the horse chestnut outside her window and wrote, on whose branches little raindrops shine, appearing like silver. That was winter, and she could make something out of nothing. In the summer, there's fruit on my tree, green globes with short spikes like a medieval weapon. They fall to the ground and break open. Inside, shiny red nuts, hard and unblemished. I could string them. My tree's a horse chestnut. If only I had the true kind, edible. I'd water that tree in a drought. I'd pick the nuts as soon as they fell. I wouldn't want the weevils to get them first. I'd score and roast them, simmer them in sugar syrup to make them swell and last. An old chestnut. I don't mind hearing a certain story again and again. The monkey promises the cat a share of chestnuts if she'll pull them from the fire. She does and burns her paws, and the wicked, clever monkey eats them all. Tirez les marrons du feu. Aesculus hippocastanum, because the fruit was thought to cure horses of lung ailments. If only I had a horse. I could cut this tree down, but the wood's too soft. What's it good for? Under my feet and tires, the sound of crumbling yellow leaves. Shall I take a picture for you? So this poem is addressed to fate, dear fate. I'll choose the spice from the row above the sink, grains of paradise or Malabar pepper, black, to season this equinox 8 weeks before winter. You'll decide when I die, when my body dissolves into lye. Your wind topples indigenous oaks, not only pines planted in shallow soil. For now, you allow me to live, like a fizzing molecule in a glass of Prosecco. Hail happiness, hello house of deafness, where I listen for what comes next, while calculating the hours I spend in anticipation. The best and worst thing about you, fate, is that you don't fall into a pattern like a 19th century novel, or for that matter, my own self-image. Your affection flickers, a loose eyelash. Your indifference is divine. I'm going to read a poem I didn't plan to read because it mentions Maryland. So this is addressed to Roe v. Wade. Dear Roe v. Wade, what a mess you're in. With red states eroding you like sand under a power wash of illogical laws, turning back time to Texas, 1969. I feel for women in Mississippi, listening to a doctor lie that abortions cause breast cancer and that the fetus can feel pain. Women waiting at the only clinic in the state. Dangerous, this personhood, this lie, extending to an embryo the powers not accorded to the breathing women who carry for and carry it over months. In 1973, I turned 18. I appreciate your gloss on do no harm, on history. In 1787, women were in this way less constrained by states than corpses are today. They can be forced to give birth. For whom is that the truth? We've made the Constitution our true guide, plus amendments carved in time, liberty and privacy, inherent rights for every citizen, even those as poor as Norma McCorvey wrote, whose statement on the case reversed, pro to con for women. Yet privacy's a cloud with women's lives hovering like drops of rain. The truth, so many tears. Thanks to DNA, the state knows everywhere we go and sometimes when. If you had feelings, Roe v. Wade, you'd be blue. But your court case, judicial law, one that even Sarah Palin knows. Irrelevance is cruel, and thinking women feel their bodies occupied by menace while living in our land of lies. I availed myself of you at 29, and for access I thank Maryland, my state. Personhood depends on power, and truth changes like a woman's chance to thrive within her gendered state, her malady. You'd like 2 more poems, is that? 2? So this one is titled Palette, P-A-L-E-T-T-E. And it goes back to my days at Hopkins in the MA program and one beloved teacher. From a love poem by Montale, I learned about a bug, cochineal, a parasite that eats the red fruit of prickly pear and then becomes the color carmine. In another book, I found rose madder, softer red, fugitive, from a root, remnants of which were found in King Tut's tomb. The teacher who translated Montale also loved Indian speeches and Greek plays, Antonioni's films. He liked us, I won't say love, his mixture of respect and interest. Bildung is reading with feeling, culture and history. Education is love for something beyond the self, Nietzsche said. My love for color is so intense, I dream of shoes to complement a dress. Eggplant edged with daffodil or pale blue striped with hickory. And I recall my teacher's voice, a cello well played with a horsehair bow. 25, sipping tea in his living room and introduced to what? I had no garden then, but studied. Palette from straw, palette for the roof of the mouth. I know the difference between these words. And so, someday I'll forget the color Vermeer used for Mary's blouse or why it matters. My teacher died at the age I am now, 30 years ago. I wish I could tell him I've eaten prickly pear and seen cochineal, and that he made me feel a pull like gravity, but from the sky. And I'll end with one short-ish poem. It's titled Alive. You and me, of course, and the animals we feed and then slaughter. The box elder bug with its dot of red, yeast in the air making bread and wine, bacteria in yogurt, carrots, the apple tree, each white blossom, and rock, which lives so slowly, it's hard to imagine it as sand then glass. A sea called dead is one that will not mirror us. We think, as human beings, we deserve every last thing. Say the element copper, incandescence glowing bright and soft like Venus, ductile as a she-wolf's eyes, pigmented red or green, exposed to acid in the air. Copper primes your liver, its mines leach lead and arsenic. Smelting is to melting the way smite is to might, a violence of extraction. What's lost when a language dies? When its tropes oppose our own? In the at-risk Aymara, the past stretches out in front, the future lags behind. Imagine being led by knowing. Imagine the end as clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. The poems are powerful and beautiful. Thank you so much for reading today. That was wonderful.
It's great to be here.